After my elder sister jumped into the lake and was rescued, she claimed she had been reborn. She abandoned the young master of the Xiang household she'd long admired and threw herself into the arms of my utterly ordinary fiancé. He doesn't love you anyway, you're just a substitute for me. Once he reaches the pinnacle of power, he'll cast aside his wife of humble origins. As the concubine-born sister, I could only smile and step aside. My elder sister had already died once. Didn't she understand yet that men couldn't be relied upon? Main text: when Changfeng came to my home to propose marriage, he arrived in splendid attire, riding a fine horse, radiating confidence and vigor. Risking scolding, I peeked from behind the screen. His features were clean-cut, his jet-black hair swept high. Every gesture carried a gentle humility. Among ordinary men, he was the most refined. I breathed a sigh of relief, feeling I might be worthy of him. He discussed politics and history with father, demonstrating broad knowledge and poise, earning father's approving nods and a faint smile. I wondered inwardly if marrying him might bring me a better life than staying in the Yin household. When Changfeng behaved impeccably, showing no slight or discontent toward my status as a concubine's daughter. That was until my elder sister, Yinxiu, returned from her outing. Ignoring the servant's protests, she stormed into the room. Her flamboyant peony-red dress, billowing as she moved, resembled a blazing flame, drawing Wen Changfeng's gaze to her involuntarily. Ignoring the presence of an outsider, Yinxiu perched on father's lap, batting her eyelashes as she recounted amusing tales from outside. She spoke of chasing away a greedy peddler, rescuing a girl being harassed, and even freeing a rabbit trapped in a snare. When Changfeng fell silent, he stared in awe at Yinxiu's flushed cheeks. Her father stroked her dark hair affectionately, scolding lightly, "Ah Xiu, you mustn't be impolite with guests present." The next moment, when Changfeng's fervent gaze froze. It was as if a bucket of cold water had been ruthlessly poured over the faintly lit candle that had just begun to burn. Because the girl he was to marry was named Yinxia, not Yinxiu. The falling flower had feelings, but the flowing water remained indifferent. Every time when Changfeng sent gifts through intermediaries, a share was always for my elder sister. The letters conveying greetings invariably included a line, asking after Miss Yinxiu. Alas, my elder sister would merely glance at them briefly before tossing them aside. Her heart belonged to Zhao Qingchen, the legitimate son of the prime minister's household. Young Master Zhao was dashing and charming, his looks rivaling Pan An's, yet father deemed him too frivolous. Past 20 yet unconcerned with official advancement, he lingered only in the company of women, hardly a man worthy of entrusting one's future to. His only redeeming quality was his status as the youngest legitimate son of the chancellor. Father ordered me to persuade my elder sister to abandon her affections for this worthless lump of mud. When I arrived, she happened to be eating grapes sent by Zhao Qingchen. A man like young Master Zhao is far beyond your reach. You should be happy he took notice of me. She sneered at me instead, casually plucking a grape and playfully flinging it at my forehead. Thud. I frowned, clutching my forehead. She was in stitches. Yinxia, don't act sour just because you can't have the grapes. I lowered my head, silently enduring her humiliation. I was a concubine's daughter. My mother was once a servant who attended to father. An accident led to my birth. Put plainly, I was a servant too. When the master was pleased, he fed me. When displeased, he could beat me to death without a shred of guilt. That was the lesson Yinxiu taught me. She tossed another grape at me, hitting my nose squarely. She giggled, "Do you know this single grape is worth a month's allowance for you? Only Zhao Gongzi could afford to give me something like this." She loved mocking my poverty and stinginess. You. Her eyes sparkled. Just like your dead aunt, stinking of poverty from head to toe. What do you know? I lowered my head, staring at my shoe tips, silent. My mother died because of Yinxiu's teasing. When I was young, during my afternoon nap, Yinxiu sneaked over to snatch my cloth doll. My aunt tried to stop her, saying I'd cry if I woke up and didn't see the doll. She flew into a rage and ran out to jump into the lake. With a light leap, Yunxiu plunged in. My aunt, terrified, had no choice but to jump in after her to save her. But Yunxiu could swim. My aunt couldn't. Yunxiu climbed back onto the shore. Instead of calling for help, she just giggled as she watched my aunt flail in the water, sinking to the bottom. When I was woken, my aunt's body had already been carried away for burial. When confronted, Yunxiu's go-to tactic was crying. Simple, brutal, effective. She claimed my aunt had only gone to the lake bottom to retrieve the money she dropped, dying because of greed. My aunt had brought it upon herself. Yunxiu bore no blame. Everyone believed her. So from that day on, I needed nothing but the money on my person. Seeing my silence, Yunxiu snorted, casually crushing a grape in her fingers and letting its crystalline juice drip onto the floor. Look, she sneered, you can't afford these grapes, yet I can crush them effortlessly. Don't spend your young years learning nothing but jealousy and spite, unable to bear others' happiness. I bowed my head and replied, thank you for your guidance, sister. I took a few steps back and walked out. After that, I kept my mouth shut. Father flew into a rage, preferring to send her to become a nun rather than allow her to marry young Master Zhao. Yunxiu was at a loss. Watching other girls win favor with young Master Zhao, she grew desperate. On a moonless, wind-swept night, Yunxiu scaled the wall and didn't return until dawn the next day. When she came back, her clothes were disheveled, her hairpin askew, and several jeweled hairpins had fallen out. She told me triumphantly that she and Zhao Qingshan had privately pledged their lives to each other. As soon as father relented, Zhao Qingshan would come to the Yin residence to propose marriage. I was shocked, yet it wasn't entirely unexpected. You're not even married yet, how could you? She glared at me, jabbed her finger hard against my forehead, and snapped, you fool. With all those beauties around young Master Zhao, I had to make a sacrifice to reel him in. My scalp prickled. Then, how do we get father to agree? She grinned. I'll go find father later and say if I can't marry him, I'll jump into the lake. He'll surely think I'm just venting. You just wait by the lake. The moment I enter the water, you go call father over. I can swim anyway, so it'll be fine. I froze. She hummed, frowning as she studied me. You're not still holding a grudge against me, are you? I shook my head, adopting a docile expression. I curved my lips into a smile. Fine, sister. You marry him. If Yunxiu was so eager to throw herself at him, I'd gladly give him up. The bench was hard. I sat with my back straight for hours. My muscles ached all over, swollen and numb. I endured it patiently, listening to Yunxiu recount the misery of her past life and the love she could never have. Her fear and agitation, her pent-up need to vent, gave me an unexpected advantage. It seemed only by talking endlessly could she ease her resentment and lingering terror. I strained to remember every detail that might prove useful to me, afraid to miss a single word. Until she finally drifted into a deep sleep. I moved with the quietest of steps and blew out the lamp. In the darkness, Yunxiu's brow remained furrowed, her lips tightly pressed together. It seemed she was unaware of the schemes I was weaving behind her back. Yunxiu's rebirth had thrown my revenge plan into disarray. Originally, I'd intended to manipulate her into marrying that scoundrel Zhao Qingshan. Now, it appeared adjustments were necessary. Some things aren't forgiven just once. They must be forgiven each time they're remembered. I will never forget the day my aunt died. Yunxiu clutched my stuffed doll, tears streaming down her face, as father held her close, soothing her with a look of utter helplessness. With his back to me, father whispered softly to her, as if afraid the precious jewel in his arms might shatter. Enough, enough. She was just a servant. She's dead. Don't be afraid, Ah Xiu. It was my own mother who had died. Yet father told Yunxiu not to be afraid. That evening, as the sun dipped low in the west, Father's towering figure cast a vast shadow. That shadow has haunted me in every nightmare since. I knew neither my concubine mother nor I were favored. But we couldn't, at least shouldn't, have lived so wretchedly. At first, I hated myself for taking that afternoon nap. I was merely a concubine's daughter, an unloved servant. Why did I try to act like a proper young mistress? Had I not napped, my concubine mother wouldn't have clashed with Yinshio, and she wouldn't have drowned. My stepmother was the kindest soul in the world, the only one who truly cared for me. All the beautiful words piled high as mountains couldn't compare to even a fraction of her worth. She even appeared to me in a dream, forbidding me to feel guilty, urging me to live well. I will not only live well. I will make Yinshio pay the price. I will make everyone who ever looked down on my stepmother beg for life, yet find no escape. The next morning, I had barely awakened and not yet finished my ablutions when Changfeng arrived in the front hall. Father closed the door and spoke with him at length in the study. At noon, they summoned me to dine with them. When I arrived, Yinshio and Wen Changfeng were already seated, side by side, chatting and laughing. Their expressions shifted slightly upon my entrance, and their conversation halted. Father lifted his chin, gesturing for me to sit. Second Miss Yun. When Changfeng rose hastily, bowing toward me. Yinshio shot me a glance, playfully tugging his arm. Changfeng, we're family. No need for formalities. Speechless, I sat down. Father indeed brought up the matter of dissolving the betrothal with my consent, adding casually, I'm sorry for the inconvenience. Then came the meal. The implication was clear, the decision was final, and I held no right to refuse. It had always been this way. Yinshio's desires always came first. My dignity in marriage, my stepmother's life and reputation, none could outweigh Yinshio's happiness. At the table, Yinshio busied herself serving Wen Changfeng dishes and pouring him tea, her attentiveness making him flustered and awkward. I should have been the most humiliated and furious person at this table, yet I sat there as if nothing mattered. He kept stealing glances at my expression. After the meal, I rose to leave, while Yinshio excitedly followed Father to the study to discuss wedding arrangements. Seeing no one around, Wen Changfeng hurried after me, calling softly, Second Miss Yun, I have something to say to you. Dressed in a crisp blue robe today, he looked neat and refined. Seeing me pause, he quickly stepped before me. Please allow me to apologize, Miss Yun, he said, his voice tinged with shame. I have betrayed your sincere affection. Truthfully, I frowned impatiently. It's unnecessary. I showed none of the sorrow or shame he expected. Without waiting for his explanation, I turned and walked away. He stood frozen in place, watching until I was far away, yet he never pursued me. If you've already cast me aside, why bother putting on this pitiful act of reluctance? Did you truly believe I'd be heartbroken? After my betrothal was dissolved, Yinshio's wedding preparations began in full swing. News spread that she would marry Wen Changfeng, a lowly 7th-rank official. To avoid suspicion, Yinshio ordered me to discard all letters and gifts Wen Changfeng had ever given me. She demanded I deny our betrothal whenever outside, lest it tarnish her reputation. If word got out I stole my younger sister's man, wouldn't people laugh themselves silly? She had the nerve to do this, yet others dared not speak. Yinshio basked in self-satisfaction, already adopting the airs of a chancellor's wife. She proclaimed herself heaven's favored daughter. This rebirth was truly bizarre. If she wasn't the protagonist of this world, who else could possibly deserve such a title? Therefore, this time, she would surely fall for the right man and live the most glorious life. I couldn't help but chuckle inwardly. Hadn't she thought exactly the same in her past life? Hadn't she been utterly convinced back then that the one she loved was truly worthy? Now, armed with the excuse of rebirth, did that make him even more deserving than before? Did she not understand that human hearts were the most fickle? The one who adored you with their life one moment could abandon you for profit the next. Sure enough, Yinxiu's joy didn't last long before bad news arrived. Zhao Qingchen discovered she'd abandoned him, the son of a minister, for some obscure nobody. His pride wounded, he spread rumors throughout the city. He claimed Yinxiu had seduced him unsuccessfully and married another out of spite. He had proof, a hairpin she'd dropped during their tryst, and a perfumed handkerchief. Yinxiu panicked. She hurriedly searched and confirmed the items had indeed been left behind during their tryst. "You bitch!" She stormed over to me and slapped me hard across the face with a sharp smack. I was reading and caught completely off guard. "You bitch! Tell me, did you spread these rumors?" Her face alternated between pale and crimson with rage. "You're just jealous. You can't stand me stealing your man, can you?" Suppressing my anger, I set the book aside and replied solemnly, "Sister, I wouldn't dare." "You wouldn't dare?" She pointed her finger at me and sneered twice. "Now that the rumor's out, if Changfeng grows suspicious and harbors resentment toward me, how can I possibly marry him? Yinxia, I don't care how you do it. Now. Immediately. Go outside and confess. Admit that you stole my clothes and jade hairpin that day, impersonating me to seduce Zhao Qingchen." Yinxiu was truly terrified. Her fingers trembled, as if the stolen happiness might slip away at any moment. I feigned resignation. "But even if you confess, what happens on my wedding night with Wengongzi? What if he discovers I haven't bled?" That night she'd scaled the wall to taste forbidden fruit, Yinxiu would pay the price. Yinxiu froze, biting her lip as a flicker of something strange passed through her eyes. "Don't worry. Father and I have already discussed it. We'll get him drunk, extinguish the lamps, and since you resemble me 6 or 7 parts out of 10, you'll take my place. He won't notice. Once it's done, you'll have lost your virginity. Then, under the pretext of washing up, you'll come out and switch back with me. As long as there's blood on the silk handkerchief, we'll pull this off." I blinked. So they'd already planned this between father and daughter. But what about me? "Sister, if I'm no longer a virgin, how will I ever marry?" She snorted, her eyes narrowing. "Yinxia, if the Yin household still has use for you, consider yourself fortunate." With that, she shot me a warning glare and turned away. I clutched my stinging cheek as a maid deftly fetched an egg to roll over the burn. Only when no one was around did I let out a satisfied laugh. Excellent. Yinxiu, reborn into this life, remains unchanged. She took the bait so easily. I pulled out a sheet of paper and wrote with my left hand. "Continue spreading rumors about Yinxiu. Begin preparations for my escape. Additionally, investigate the type of woman Wen Changfeng favors. Train her lavishly, sparing no expense." After sealing the secret letter carefully, I whistled for my carrier pigeon and sent it away. Yinxiu hadn't guessed wrong. I was the one who spread the rumors, deliberately forcing her to pin the blame on me. Only by taking the fall could I prepare my escape. Though I'd been laying the groundwork around Zhao Qingchen for ages, planning to torment Yinxiu slowly after her marriage, I never anticipated this sudden rebirth. I'd worried whether this reincarnated Yinxiu would uncover my manipulations. But she remained as foolish as ever. Relieved, I realized that since she no longer desired Zhao Qingchen, the courtesans I'd bribed wouldn't need to cling to him anymore. My next target, Wen Changfeng. Yinxiu was absolutely right. I was a wretched soul, greedy for money, just like my dead aunt. For cash, I'd even sacrifice my own life. But money could make the devil grind the mill. It could also send that horde of devils to pounce on Yinxiu, devouring her flesh and blood piece by piece. After my aunt's death, barely a day passed before Yinxiu grew bored with that rag doll. She had that tattered rag doll sent back to me. The doll, hand-sewn by my aunt, was a little horse. With twisted cruelty, she cut off one of the horse's legs, ripped open its belly, pulled out the stuffing, then traced the shape of intestines with red ink. When the old woman returned the horse to me, she didn't leave. Instead, she stared wide-eyed, a smirk curling her lips, waiting for my tearful reaction. Oh dear, oh dear. The little horse seems to have died. Look, look, its intestines are all exposed. TSK, TSK, how pitiful. The old woman stared at me expectantly. I turned and went back inside. When I came out again, I grabbed a pair of scissors. With 3 or 4 snips, 7 or 8 snips, I frantically cut the cloth horse puppet into shreds. The old woman was startled. Her expression shifted from anticipation to blankness, then to terror. She muttered curses as she walked away. After she left, I set it ablaze, reducing the puppet to ashes. From that day on, I demanded money. My father, who never truly loved me, grew even more convinced I was beneath him. He stopped even pretending to dote on me. Since I craved money, he simply bestowed gold and silver. I began devouring books, learning business, scheming to amass more wealth. I was swindled, threatened, even took in a beggar to handle my public dealings. Finally achieving modest success, I started weaving my schemes. I spent lavishly, determined to destroy everything Yinshou cherished. I had people approach Zhao Qingchen and Yinshou to compete for favor, and had others whisper in Yinshou's ear to push her into illicit affairs before marriage. But Yinshou was reborn. Fortunately, even after rebirth, she remained a fool whose mind was filled only with men. While she waxed lyrical about her love's ill-fated twists, I was recording the political shifts and public sentiment of the time. What trends swept the populace? Which officials exposed their corruption? Who emerged as a dark horse? All this would fuel my vengeance against her once more. In the days that followed, I began venturing out frequently. Whenever I left, Yinshou forced me to wear the clothes she'd worn with Zhao Qingchen that night and adorn myself with her jewelry. She also started spreading rumors about me being promiscuous, seducing young Master Zhao, a mere concubine's daughter who dared dream of entering the Chancellor's mansion. It sickened me to the core. Yet I had to submit obediently. The more I was humiliated, the greater my chance to escape using this situation. After wandering aimlessly on the streets for a while, I went to my shop and climbed up to a hidden attic. Egu stood beside me, dressed in men's clothing. She was a beggar I had picked up 5 years ago. It was the dead of winter, and she had frozen unconscious. I had paid a hefty sum to save her. A girl, starved beyond recognition, wrapped in damp, heavy straw in the bitter cold. Had I not saved her, she wouldn't have survived that winter. Later, when she awoke and looked at me for the first time, I knew we were kindred spirits. Now, she is my second in command. From a skinny little bean sprout to a young woman who now stands a head taller than me. Agu is the person I trust most in this world. If rumors spread that you impersonated your elder sister to seduce men, you'll never recover your reputation for the rest of your life. Agu looked at me with concern. I waved her off, unconcerned. Reputation only hurts you if you care about it. She gazed at me with heartache. Find me a nunnery. I'm taking vows. Also, approach the newly appointed officials on this list. Bribe them to curry favor with Wen Chongfeng. Spend whatever it takes to pave the way for Wen Chongfeng's rebellion. Agu was startled by my words. Rebellion? Would he dare? Ever since Yinshou told me that night I would be divorced, I'd spent countless hours imagining every possible scenario. Truthfully, Wen Chongfeng was a perfectly adequate partner for sharing life's burdens. I could accept his lack of love, even his treating me as a substitute. No matter how many concubines he took, I didn't care, as long as I could live in peace. But in my past life, I divorced him. Yinshou died shortly after our divorce, only to be reborn. She didn't know why I divorced him, nor what happened afterward. She only knew Wen Chongfeng had boundless potential, far superior to that beastly Zhao Qingchen. But was that truly the case? What unfolded later couldn't have been simple. Her mind was consumed by men, leaving no space to ponder why events unfolded as they did. Thus, I suspect Wen Changfeng harbored thoughts of siding with rebels. If discovered, the punishment would be extermination of his entire clan. Yet Yinxiu died too soon to know. Whether he plotted rebellion in the past life or conspired with others, this time I will guide him down that path. Besides, if I told that fool Yinxiu she could take a gamble, get Wen Changfeng made a prince, or even emperor. Doesn't she think she's the protagonist of the world? Wouldn't she covet the position of empress or princess consort? Gossip raged like a flood, trapping me indoors. Those who recognize me hurl insults, some even secretly pelt me with rotten eggs and vegetable scraps, mocking my audacity to impersonate my legitimate elder sister and seduce the young master of the prime minister's household. Zhao Qingshan knows the truth, but he values his reputation too much to defend a lowly concubine's daughter. Father bestowed another mountain of gold and silver, yet never once came to see me. Yinxiu busies herself joyfully with wedding preparations. Next month, she will be married. Father, too, has made a grand gamble. He frequently admonishes me, warning me, and in passing, brainwashing me. Oxia, every person has their own mission in this life. Your mission is to dedicate yourself to the prosperity and glory of the Yin household. The day before Yinxiu's wedding, he sought me out personally for a heart-to-heart. Father began with a sigh. You are my daughter too. I know you've suffered wrongs. He recited those words stiffly, his concern failing to reach his eyes. But you know your sister's nature. We are family. When she errs, we must help her. I nodded. Father speaks wisely. It would be best if, years later, when Wen Changfeng's crimes were exposed and the Yin household was implicated, he could speak with such compassion about family sharing burdens. After all, beheading requires the family to be complete. Seeing my calm demeanor, he faltered for a moment. Rest assured, after this matter is settled, Father will surely compensate you properly. I feigned gratitude. With the rumors now sufficiently fermented, it was time to execute my escape plan. Father, your daughter seeks no compensation. I have only one request. He suddenly fell silent, watching me warily. What is it? Rumors have been raging like wildfire these past days. Your daughter knows that remaining in the Yin household would only bring further disgrace upon it. 2 tears fell as I looked up at him with pleading eyes. I wish to renounce my marriage and become a nun. I will spend the rest of my days in prayer, offering blessings for my sister and you. Once I sever ties with the Yin household, others will have no grounds to speak ill of it. After these words, Father remained silent for a long while. Fearing he might refuse, I pressed on, then let it be known that this is Father's mercy. Daughter stole her elder sister's finery and shamelessly seduced the legitimate heir of the prime minister's household. Such crimes deserve drowning in a pig's cage as a warning to others. Yet Father, in his kindness, permits me to shave my head and enter the monastery. Spare my life. My eyes reddened. Father, tell me, isn't this the best solution? My words carried a hint of genuine resentment. It wasn't my fault at all. I hadn't done anything. But every time Yinxiu acted impulsively, I had to bear the consequences. I was destined to be the scapegoat. Everyone believed I was born to be the foil in a storybook. My greatest merit was being willing to stab myself in the ribs for the protagonists. My happiness? My life? What were those worth? How could they compare to her, the protagonist's, love? Silence hung in the study for a moment. Then you will no longer be a daughter of the Yin household. Father's voice was slightly hoarse. Very well, very well. Though you'll have no ties to the Yin family henceforth, I will still send people to watch over you there. I wiped my tears with a handkerchief, dabbing away years of hopes and frustrations. This way, everything became much simpler. I smiled. Let's not delay. Let it be today. Tomorrow, when my elder sister marries, no one will dare point fingers. Father hesitated only briefly before summoning servants to fetch my birth contract and documents, as if fearful I might change my mind. Within an hour, the person sent to the nunnery returned with news. It was the nun I had secretly bribed. Anziago had made arrangements, our people were in control over there. By afternoon, Father went to the magistrate's office to make the announcement public. When Agu passed me the news, she said the onlookers were all shouting that Father had done well, putting righteousness before family ties, admitting his mistake, and that it wasn't too late to repent now. Father's mouth stretched almost to his ears. His good-for-nothing concubine's daughter had finally been useful once. The next day. Before dawn, the Yin residence bustled with activity. Everyone was running around non-stop, some helping Yinshio dress and groom, others inventorying the dowry, while the wedding matrons coordinated the nuptial arrangements. No one noticed me, the concubine's daughter, slipping quietly out the back gate. This time, I took nothing with me. The clothes on my back and the hairpin in my hair were all purchased outside. I didn't want to carry even a shred of this place with me. Agu was waiting for me outside. Beside her stood a spacious carriage. She held a bouquet of wildflowers and wore understated gray men's clothing. Seeing me approach, she smiled and raised her arm. Congratulations on your freedom. I hid outside for a month. According to Agu's informants, Yinshio and Father only noticed my absence that afternoon. They searched until dusk, when Chongfeng arrived for the wedding procession. Only then did panic set in. They stormed into my courtyard, cursing loudly, and subjected my servants to torture to extract information. Yinshio had been waiting for me on their wedding night, ready to offer her virginity as a gift of love. But I had run away. Those servants were Yinshio's spies all along. Even if they were beaten to death, they couldn't reveal my whereabouts. Yinshio married on schedule. She wasn't foolish. On their wedding night, she claimed her monthly period had just started. After that, she likely devised other ways to avoid consummating the marriage. When Chongfeng still adored her beyond measure, wishing he could pluck stars from the heavens to give her. Their affection drew envy from many. During this month of hiding, every soul in the Yin household searched for me. Even the nunnery I intended to reach was turned upside down. Mindful of their reputation, they dared not admit I'd vanished. Instead, they swallowed their pride and claimed I'd retired to seclusion at the nunnery, covering for me. They never imagined a concubine's daughter would dare to flee. Nor would they tolerate a concubine's daughter tarnishing the Yin family's name. Watching them suffer this humiliation amused me. A month later, I returned to the nunnery. That very afternoon, Yinshio stormed in, fuming. Agu had entered the nunnery with me, finally able to accompany me openly. So when Yinshio tried to strike me again, Agu stepped in with a cold expression, blocking her hand. "Laywoman, please restrain yourself." Yinshio stared at Agu in disbelief. This was the first time she'd aimed to hit me and missed. Her face darkened as she loomed over me. "Yinshio, will you hit yourself, or shall I do it?" In the past, I would have trembled in fear, slapping my own face until Yinshio laughed heartily. But now, I lifted my face, raised my hand, and struck her cheek hard. The sharp smack echoed as Yinshio's meticulously maintained face flushed crimson and swelled instantly. She froze, looking as if she'd seen a ghost. The next second, she lunged at me, clawing and snarling, "You bitch! You dared hit me? Who do you think you are?" I'd endured over a decade. This was merely the beginning of my retribution. Just one slap, and Yinshio couldn't take it? Agu stepped in front of me, swiftly pinning her arms. Unable to fight back, Yinshio began hurling insults. She called me an ungrateful wretch, saying the Yin household had raised me all these years, yet when they needed me, I'd just up and left. If she'd known, she should have let me drown with my mother. "I knew you wicked woman had no good intentions. Damn you! You deserve to die. You nearly ruined me." Her eyes blazed crimson with hatred. Do you think you can avoid returning to the Yun manor forever? Do you really believe this tiny nunnery can protect you? Wait until you go back, see if father doesn't flay your skin. I pressed my palms together, lowering my gaze. Amitabha Buddha. Eldest sister, little sister is so scared. What if father stops donating offerings and the abbess gets angry, making my life miserable? Little sister will starve, freeze, and be tormented day after day. She froze momentarily, nodding instinctively. Yes, you've always depended on the Yin household. Without it, you're nothing. Ha ha ha. I suddenly burst into laughter, doubled over as if hearing the most hilarious joke. Eldest sister, the one who's always depended on the Yin household, on men, to survive, has always been you, not me. Yin Xiu hadn't expected me to be so unyielding. The once utterly timid me had suddenly grown so defiant. She couldn't understand, yet she was powerless to do anything. I was no longer part of the Yin household, I was no longer connected to her. If she forced her hand, she'd only earn another slap in return. Besides, she was still counting on me to take the fall for her scandal of seduction. The Yin household could no longer touch me. Yunxiu had barely left when Changfeng arrived. It was rare for men to visit the nunnery. He went straight to the abbess, specifically requesting me to resolve his doubts, and paid a substantial offering. Moments later, he appeared before me. I had no intention of engaging with him. But I couldn't resist when the abbess mentioned I'd get half of that offering. Well, I couldn't very well turn down money. After so long apart, when Changfeng looked even more radiant, his entire being glowing with vitality. Having married a beauty and gained his father-in-law's backing, when Changfeng would reach that position even faster than in his previous life. His tone this time carried even more remorse than when he'd broken off our engagement to marry another. Miss Yin Heir, I'm sorry. If not for me, you wouldn't have been driven to sever ties with the Yin household and shave your head to become a nun. His gaze lingered on my gray robes and the smooth, fair skin of my exposed neck. He seemed to think I was suffering from his betrayal. At this thought, I furrowed my brow, my face clouded with sorrow, and sighed softly. Layman, matters have come to this. Speaking of other things is now pointless. When Changfeng's lips quivered. If you're willing, I could find a way to take you away. To care for you. You mean keep me as your concubine? I cut straight to the heart of his unspoken intent. How shameless. He acknowledged my words, his gaze fixed on me. Second Miss Yun. Even now, he still sought to use me to satisfy his own selfish desire for redemption. I smiled, deciding to fan the flames. Has my elder sister ever told you about her rebirth? After a moment, he nodded. This fool. Well, so much the better. My elder sister said you possess the makings of an emperor. Though we share no marital bond, we are still half-relatives. At this critical juncture, young Master Wen should focus entirely on his own future. I offered my sincere advice, though these words may seem bold, I believe your natural brilliance surpasses anyone's. Do not disappoint my elder sister. When Changfeng jolted. He seemed taken aback by my unexpectedly high regard for him. His gaze grew complex, but in the end, he said nothing. He rose and left. Moments later, a Gu emerged from behind the screen. Arms crossed, she clicked her tongue in disbelief. Yunxiu's selfishness is truly appalling. And when Changfeng, how utterly audacious. Does he really think he's some kind of extraordinary figure? Two people sharing the same bed can't be so different. Getting divorced in your past life was probably the wisest decision you ever made. I remained non-committal. How are those women coming along? Agu smiled. They're doing wonderfully. Each one is as beautiful as a flower. Even I, as a woman, find myself wanting to get closer to them. They're so tender and gentle, certainly far more endearing than that haughty Yinsho. Find an opportunity to have them approach Wen Changfeng. Agu nodded. After speaking, I felt a bit dazed. I still remembered the night Yinsho jumped into the lake. She said that in her past life, after marrying Zhao Qingchen, he grew tired of her in just a few months. One after another, new women entered his life, each with deep, hidden schemes. She fought endlessly with that group of women. The battles left both sides battered and bruised, yet she always felt watched, toyed with. It was as if every enchanting, bewitching woman in the world had set her sights on Zhao Qingchen. Now I was finally certain. Yes, I did it too. Armed with the information Yinshu shared after her rebirth, I swiftly gained control over a group of minor officials. Some were bought with money, others held hostage by compromising information. They began lavishing praise upon Wen Changfeng, extolling his every word and deed. Women flowed into his residence like water. For years, Yinshu basked in public glory. Behind closed doors, however, her life was unbearably bitter. Wen Changfeng loved her, but not deeply enough. What a youth cannot possess will haunt him for life. Yinshu transformed from the unattainable moonlight of his youth into a readily available birthmark. Stripped of that aura, Wen Changfeng soon found her tedious. To compete for his favor, Yinshu began leveraging her knowledge of past events to help him build influence within the court. Wen Changfeng grew in power rapidly. Next, it was time for the pawn I'd nurtured for over a decade to make its move. Driven by his own ambition, fueled by Yinshu's relentless brainwashing, and manipulated by my hand-picked sycophants who flattered him to his downfall, soon, Wen Changfeng chose a faction to align with. The Yin household, with no other choice, was bound to that ship as well. From then on, fierce factional strife erupted. When Changfeng began to feel overwhelmed, forced by circumstances to act, committing many irreversible deeds. Yinshu grew panicked. She began seeking me out, demanding to know why I had divorced him in my past life. 10 years had now passed. Her garments were exquisitely luxurious, each jade hairpin adorning her bun worth a fortune. Her face was dusted with pearl powder, her lips painted with peach blossom rouge. Yet she looked as if she'd aged 20 years from exhaustion. All the noble ladies of the capital fawned over her, the wife of the chancellor. Yet now, she clutched my sleeve humbly, begging me to tell her. Yinshu, why did you divorce him in your past life? How should I know, elder sister? You're the one who reincarnated, I replied with a faint smile. Besides, isn't it a bit late to be asking now? Yinshu's eyes narrowed. Her fingernails were encased in protective caps studded with bright red and green gemstones. She jabbed them into my arm, the pain sharp. I wrenched her hand away and took 2 steps back. Sister, I'm but a poor soul. The riches I couldn't enjoy in my past life, I have no right to in this one either. Yinshu's face turned ashen, her eyes filled with despair as she stared at me. Failing to get an answer, she retreated, defeated. Half a year later, evidence of Wen Changfeng's conspiracy to rebel was submitted. The emperor flew into a rage, issuing an edict to execute his entire clan and carry out the execution after the autumn harvest. Having long since left the Yin household, I naturally escaped execution. When the imperial decree for the clan execution arrived, I deliberately descended the mountain with a gu. Standing among the crowd, I watched with keen interest. This can't be. Yinshu shoved away the officials trying to seize her. Let me do it again. I won't make a mistake. It's impossible. No one indulged her. Seeing her outburst, 2 sharp slaps landed on her face. Stunned, Yinshu stood frozen in place. She suddenly began struggling violently. At first, she clung to the hope that the Yin household could protect her. But when she learned the entire family was implicated and her father would also be beheaded, she descended into madness, screaming her innocence. It wasn't me. The one who deserved to die was Yinshu, my half-sister. She dug up a decade-old story, claiming that Yinxia, her half-sister, was the one who should have married Wen Chongfeng. But who would listen to a dying madwoman? Agu stood beside me, muttering, even if it were you, you wouldn't die. You divorced him. Men, truly unreliable. Yunxiu boasted of rebirth, yet still walked the same path as her past life. After Yunxiu was imprisoned, she seemed to have gone mad. Unable to accept her shattered dreams, she alternated between tears and laughter. One moment she'd overturn her food, refusing to eat even if it meant death. The next, she'd pick it up and stuff it into her mouth frantically. Out of kindness, I went to visit her in the dungeon. When she saw me, she froze for a long moment before reacting, wailing as she threw herself against the iron bars. Yunxia! You ruined me! You deserve to die. You! Not me! Her hair was matted, her body reeking of sour stench. I covered my nose. Eldest sister. Oh, wait, I forgot, I'm no longer part of the Yun household. Miss Yun, you were the one who insisted on marrying him. Her mind wavered for a moment. No, no. Did you? Did you know all along that when Chongfeng's rebellion would fail? That you knew it in your past life? And in this life, you figured out how to become a nun and save yourself. Facing imminent doom, Yunxiu suddenly grew lucid. I didn't answer her question. Out of respect for our past acquaintance, I'll see you off. She pounded the iron bars, her body swaying wildly. You vile woman. You ruined me. I should have thrown you into the lake that afternoon too, so you could die alongside your lowly mother. I was blind not to see you were the true yellow sparrow lurking behind the scenes. Yunxiu regretted it so much her guts turned green. I reveled in her final breakdown, savoring the sweet taste of revenge. If Miss Yin isn't satisfied, she'll just have to be reborn again. She screamed like a ghost, reaching out to grab me. The commotion drew the jailer. The guard approached, club in hand. At his sight, Yunxiu clamped her mouth shut in terror and scurried into a corner. The guard snorted coldly before leaving. She glared at me with hatred, saying nothing more. I watched her silently for a while longer, then left the guard some team money and instructed him to keep a close eye on the people of the Yun household. As for Wen Chongfeng and father, I couldn't be bothered to even glance their way. Their own bitter consequences awaited them. I wanted them to live as peacefully as possible until the day their heads were chopped off. To slowly savor that despair of impending death. But I hoped they wouldn't succumb to that despair and hang themselves before that day came. The jailer proved remarkably accommodating. Swinging a heavy money pouch, he grinned broadly, the abbess truly has a kind heart. It's your years of virtuous deeds that have spared you this fate, unlike these wretches. Rest assured, I replied. I'll see to it they're well fed and well rested. I gave a faint smile. It ba. On the day of the execution, I deliberately changed into my everyday clothes. On a whim, I even sewed a small horse doll. Holding that childish doll, I stood at the very front of the crowd, watching them all be beheaded. Yunxiu was so terrified he wet himself. Wen Chongfeng wasn't much better. Father, having weathered life's storms, maintained a dignified bearing despite his snow-white hair and eyes filled with sorrow. Spotting me, he suddenly stirred with emotion. Yunxia! He cried out. Yunxiu and Wen Chongfeng turned their gaze toward me as well. I nodded with a smile. Noon had arrived. The executioners raised their blades high. I lifted the little horse doll. Placing it before me, I fiddled with its 4 legs. Clop clop clop. I mimicked the sound of the little horse galloping. My aunt had died for this doll, I offered it as a final gift to them both. Yunxiu's already pallid cheeks suddenly drained of color. Father's expression grew distant. Clang. The executioner's blades fell in unison. One by one, heads fell to the dusty ground, frozen in expressions of terror and resignation. The first thing I did when I had time. I built a symbolic grave for my aunt and often paid my respects. The second thing, I faced my nightmare of drowning head-on and learned to swim. Gu insisted on teaching me. Third, we set out wandering again. Gu and I, a carriage, several bodyguards, and heaps of silver. We sailed upon emerald waves, watching rivers flow into the sea. We sought wild paths through forests, then visited mountain temples to gather osmanthus seeds beneath the moon. We rose early, unafraid of the biting cold, and returned late, undaunted by frosty nights. This magnificent landscape healed me deeply. Much later, when we revisited those days, Gu remarked on my extraordinary patience, enduring a decade without complaint, orchestrating such a grand scheme behind the scenes while remaining utterly composed. Waiting 3 years, 5 years, even over a decade. Waiting for Wen Changfeng to mature, waiting for the Yin family to collapse. Waiting for all grudges to be settled by time. Ultimately, the great vengeance was served. Gu asked me with emotion, when you learned Yinxiu had been reborn, were you afraid? I smiled. Perhaps it was heaven's will, to let Yinxiu fully taste the consequences of her actions. That's why she was granted rebirth. Some sins. A single lifetime of repayment is simply not enough. The story ends here. Thank you all for your companionship. See you in the next chapter.